Welcome to Far Out with Faust. I'm Faust Chicho, and today I'm sitting here with Justin Henry. Justin is an American actor and a businessman. He's known for playing the object of the custody battle in the 1979 classic Kramer versus Kramer, and he became the youngest Oscar nominee in any category for Best Supporting Actor when he was only 8 years old. That's amazing, dude. During the 80s, he appeared in a handful of films, including Martin's Day, the John Hughes teen classic 16 Candles, which you've had to heard of if you've been living on Earth, Sweetheart's Dance, and John Frankenheimer's television film Andersonville. He went on to co-found Slam Dunk Film Festival. That was in 1998, and he developed a distribution platform for films, which, as an independent filmmaker, you know that it's things like this that we get by on, that we get our films out on. So Justin, thank you so much for beaming in, bro. It's great to have you here. I've heard so much about you.
I'm glad to be here, Faust. Thanks for having me. I think I'm a little bit out of your normal wheelhouse, so it's
That's
good,
all right.
it's good to be here and in the mix. Although my metaphysical chops are pretty good, so we'll get at
Awesome,
it.
man. Well,
Yeah,
you're in the right place because, even though my run of the mill guest has been all over the place. This is very much also my wheelhouse, coming from, as a actor and a filmmaker and a producer,
yeah.
so it's great to be sitting with you.
Well,
Absolutely.
thanks, man. I really appreciate it, and we're all in it together, so it's fun.
Indeed.
It's nice to be speaking with you as well.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So tell me, man, how are you? Tell me the story of how you were discovered or ended up getting casted in Kramer versus Kramer in
Yeah.
'79.
Uh, well, the way I remember it, and it's so weird, memory gets bizarre after a while. But that's another weird thing we can get into, sort of how I remember things versus how they probably happened. But particularly for Kramer, so I grew up outside of New York City in a suburb, and the casting agents hadn't really decided who was going to play what ended up being Meryl Streep's part, which was the mom married to Dustin Hoffman in the story. So they were looking for somebody, excuse me, they were looking for somebody that sort of fit a profile. And so they went to a number of schools around my area. I think they went to like 10 schools, and they chose kids kind of, I guess, at random. Um, I remember one day I got a call, my parents got a call from the principal of my school and said, hey, Justin was these casting agents for this movie with Dustin Hoffman were at school, and they saw Justin and they'd like to meet him. And they did that with multiple other schools and with several kids in my class. And I think in the class above me, I was in maybe first or second grade at the time. And my parents said, sure, whatever. So it started out as basically a meeting with the director in New York City. From my recollection, there were hundreds of kids that they asked to go meet with them. Shirley Rich was the casting agent, and this is 1978, I'm going to say, or maybe even 77
Wow.
at this point in the process. Um, so I went and met with Robert Benton, who was the director, and I remember very clearly there were so many people in this tiny little room in a studio in New York City, and it was very
Did you have any
weirdly.
acting experience at the time, or they just
Oh
like
no, no,
he's
no,
got the
Faust. I
look?
mean, yeah, this was like, hey, maybe just the kid looks like the part. I mean, I literally could have been sick that day, and I probably would not be here talking to you.
Wow.
That's yeah. Think about that. That's kind of a really interesting thing. Um, and I remember when my dad got the call from the principal. He's like, "Why is the principal calling me like at night? Like, what happened?" Thinking that I had done something bad because I was not a very good behaviorally
Yeah.
adjusted kid. So, long story short, I went to that first audition, and then they called me back to go to a second one, which was actually a meeting with Dustin Hoffman. So the second one was Dustin and I in a room together, and apparently that's really where we began to really sort of jive. The story goes, and I remembered the situation. I don't really remember how the meeting went. It wasn't really a meeting. It was just us sitting on a couch, sort of talking and being together. And apparently
How old were you again?
I was like 6 or 7.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
And so we got on like peas and carrots, and then they asked me to come back for an on camera, sort of work session. And from what I was told, or what I remember, was that I was not the first choice at that point,
Mm.
but that my I did really well in sort of working within what was a movie set at the time as part of the audition, working with director, sort of the way you had to shoot the movie. I guess
Mm-hmm.
I did pretty well. And then I think what happened also is that at some point in the process, Kate Jackson was sort of circled to play the mother, and I think she either fell out or got replaced, and Meryl came in, and then my look and Meryl's look were much more aligned, and so it just worked out that way. And I will never forget the day I was at summer camp, and we're doing water fights and playing with playing stuff, and my parents called me up and said, hey, you got the part.
Wow.
And it was a big deal in my town. My town's very small, and a lot of other kids had gone in for it and sort of knew that what was going on.
Yeah.
And so it was a big deal for me and for the town and for everything. And then it just sort of went on from there. But yeah, man, I had never, I'd never gone for anything, commercials, any of that
Right.
stuff. I didn't even know what acting was. I didn't know
Yeah.
who Dustin Hoffman was. I didn't know Meryl Streep was. I mean, they just
No, I mean, you were like 6, 7 years. I mean, my God,
yeah,
how could you? I mean, yeah, that's that's what are the odds? I mean, that's some amazing, amazing, synchronicities to happen to put you in place there
yeah.
to be picked, and then to have Meryl come in and have you be more kind of physically aligned with her, and it's so crazy, man.
Yeah, and it's interesting, that sort of that idea of that, like, anything can happen at any time is
Yeah,
something that I always sort of really believe in. I think, things just sort of develop, and life has a way of showing you these, presenting things to you, and it's really fortunate, and it was an amazing, amazing experience. It was unbelievable.
yeah. I'm trying to imagine, man. I can barely remember. Like, I mean, I remember getting my training wheels off, but only because I broke my nose the same. Well, yeah, I have a twin brother, and he didn't get his training wheels off the same time as me. And most physical feats, he was ahead of me. So the fact that I had no training wheels, and I was literally like driving circles around him, and like
Nice.
taunting him because
Loving it. Yeah.
you know, and then my handlebars caught, and I just remember the concrete rushing at my face, and I'll never forget like seeing those little grooves in the concrete just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then smashed my nose, and I was like, put my training wheels back on.
Oh,
Anyway, that's about all I remember from when I was 6. You know, so it's amazing to me that you had an experience like man, how much of it can you remember, and how much of it comes from like you filling in the gaps, and hearing the stories. It's become such a classic, iconic movie. It's so crazy.
yeah. It's interesting, and as we've sort of had a resurgence not so long ago, because it was like the 30th anniversary, and they did these DVDs and all these other things. And so it's interesting. I have people sort of piecing my memory back together for me as we go through this process, which is also really super interesting to see.
Very
But
cool.
yeah, I too, Faust, once smashed my face deeply riding my bicycle when I was about 8 years old or 9 years
Wow, we
old.
have that in
Yeah,
common.
yeah, mine was really bad, man. I was we had this very steep hill in my house where I grew up, and really steep driveway, and I was zooming down it on my two-wheeler, and I had a fake gun on the handlebars, and the muzzle of the fake gun got caught in the spokes at about the pinnacle of the
Oh
drop
man.
down the thing, and it shot me a good 4 or 5 feet straight into the road head first.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
I know.
it was a lovely 6 weeks of picking dirt out of my face.
Yeah, same here. And I was an identical twin, and so my immediately by 6, but there was a stark difference in our facial features because my nose was very broken, and that was the
Sorry to hear
first
that, man.
time. Yeah, first
Sorry to
time
hear
I
that.
ended up breaking it a lot more. So the difference became much more apparent as the years went on. But let me ask you,
Sure.
dude, you got to tell me, what was it like working with Robert Benton? Who, if you don't know, Robert Benton also did Bonnie and Clyde and Marlon Brando's Superman, just a little bit of reference.
Yeah, Robert Benton ruined me for acting from that point on.
Oh, how so?
I thought it was always going to be like working with him. I thought it all was like that. He was amazing. He was one of the kindest, gentlest human beings on the planet, number one. And his level of empathy and sort of just his way, his everything about him is very mellow, super mellow, very centered. You know, he's an amazing writer. He's written so many more screenplays than he's directed, and he's an incredible director simply because he just has this way about him. And I've quickly discovered that it's not always like that. You know, the directors and ego go very closely in hand, God, yeah. And Benton really left that at the door. And, you know, to the point where when we were making Kramer, he would step out far enough so that he would allow Dustin basically to give me direction as like a father figure, right?
Yeah.
Because Dustin's kind of teaching me how to act during this process, teaching me things to access and to think about, sort of setting the stage. And Benton and his wisdom kind of wanted Dustin to really carry that
That's a good director right there.
Yeah, that not only with me the actor, but with me the character.
Right.
So that was great. And yeah, he's just amazing. You know, I saw him not so long ago. Well, I guess it's pretty long ago now, at the Sarasota Film Festival, and it was great to see him. And I think he's healthy. I think he's healthy now. I'm not 100% sure, but I wish they made more like him.
Yeah, there's so few and far between those kind of directors.
Yeah,
you know, especially these days, it's become such an intensely visual medium that, you know, most directors don't even realize that it's really part of their, you know, job description to be able to work with the actors like that and to be able to get the best performance of their actors. You know, I mean, they can state the result they want really well, but most of them can't help you get there, and that's therein lies some of the problem. But yeah, man, actors and directors have the funniest relationship. It's like either, you know, it's love or hate, but, you know, directors are always so kind of quietly derogatory about actors. Now, I'm a producer, you know, I mean, I was an actor first, and I still am. But when I became a producer, I would hear directors talk about actors, and I'm like, man, do you always talk about actors like that? That's fucked up. You know, like, what did actors ever do to you? Like, they're like the bane of their existence. Well, I guess because, as you know, when you get into the upper echelons of Hollywood and casting, you know, agents, not casting agents, but agents, you know, and you're dealing with casting, then you start to deal with a lot of the egos and the you know, the demands and all that. The worst part of it is
it's a power play in some places, but I think the best directors are able to work with actors on levels that are relatively evolved. You know, I think it depends on the movie, it depends on the director. That's why, as a producer, it's so important that you are able to find that sort of chemistry, sweet spot, you know, get the movie where you need it to be, make sure that they get along well. But I do think that the relationship between actor and director is, for me, extremely important. And I think in some ways I do put so much sort of heed into that I think it actually was difficult. I found it difficult to work with some directors just at all, you know, really at all.
Yeah,
I had nothing to say to them, nothing to do with them. I got nothing from them. You know, I need a lot from my director as an actor. I need to know, am I going in the right direction? Because I'm not thinking about what's going on when it's going on. I'm just doing what I've got to do. And so I hope that the director is confident enough in their understanding of me, the role, the scene, the time, to help me put that into place. And I think, you know, sometimes that can be seen as like needy or whatever, but
or micromanaging. There's a fine line, but, you know, each actor is different. So.
Exactly. And these directors, to your point, directors nowadays, a lot of them just don't have that skill set because, you know, they're more worried about whether or not the helicopter is gonna drop the camera in the right spot.
That's the signal right there. Right?
Yeah. That drone is in my shot. Get that drone out of here.
Oh man, that reminds me of my favorite movie, Tropic Thunder.
Ah, yes.
Of all time.
Fantastic picture.
Such a masterpiece.
Yes, it really is. I mean,
it
Ben Stiller is a fucking genius.
The
guy is a fucking genius.
Yeah, but could you make that today? That's the question.
No, of course not. What are you talking about?
Wait, is that the voice of God?
Yeah, the voice. God talks to us once in a while.
The question was, can these very sort of high concept comedy movies get made today? And I think the answer is yes. I think that movie could get made again today if it was packaged right and done right.
With Robert Downey Jr. playing blackface today?
Oh, on that, no. But
well, there goes the movie.
Forgot about that part. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking at it through that.
I mean, they literally made it right at the end of the period of time when they could.
Thank God there hasn't been a backlash against Downey Jr. I mean, they could have.
Dude, he was nominated for an Academy Award.
I know, because he was awesome.
He should have won, if you ask me. He was incredible. It was great.
It was such a well-written movie,
Yeah.
and like, imagine trying to pitch that movie to somebody.
Oh my God, man!
Imagine,
and the
like,
budget they got.
Yeah, I mean, but just think about the pitch meeting. Well, it's a movie about a movie, and this guy is white, but he plays a black guy who thinks he's white, and then there's like an old guy who's not really.
We're gonna get Nick Nolte for that.
Yeah. And then there's like a heroin junkie who's kind of like, but he's on the word to recovery. And
it must have been, I mean, like, they must have really got them like laughing, and, to get them to, go with the over $100 million budget for that film. And they had to get them very, it's a fucking comedy. There was comedy's tough, If you've ever done a comedy, it is, it can be hit or miss. Even when you think you've got some gold material, comedy is tough, man. There's, right next to death. It's so hard.
It was not a done deal. And we were, there was
risk.
Everybody thought 16 Candles was going to fucking bomb. I'm serious, man. We all thought it was going to be terrible.
You just never know.
And it turned out to be, gold. So yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. You've got to sort of try not to overthink things, I think, especially in the movie part. That's why you want to get the right people in the right places and then let them go do their thing.
Yeah.
And hope to God it doesn't blow up in your face.
Yeah. That reminds me, when I first moved to the city, I went to a conservatory. I got out of college, and the chair of the department was like, you should really get some training. And I was like, for what? He was like, for acting. I'm like, oh, you think I need it? Really? All right. I guess I'll look into it. You don't know that you know nothing. You just, you've been in 20 plays, and you are the lead, and you think that you know what acting is, but then you learn that you know nothing. And anyway, I ended up in a conservatory with Mike Nichols, and he always said, don't blame the ones that showed up. Don't blame the audience, whatever you end up with. It ain't their fault, It's not. Yeah. You can't blame the ones that showed up. So
that must have been cool to work with Nichols, though.
Oh man, I wrote down everything that man said, because there was nothing that came out of his mouth that wasn't either profound and hilarious.
I mean, The Graduate. What can you say about that? I had an opportunity to meet him when Dustin Hoffman was presented a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Kennedy Center in New York, and I got to go present and speak at that, and Mike Nichols was there, and he was by far sort of I was the most starstruck by meeting him, for sure. I tried definitely to be like, so Mike, what are you working on? Mike, what's going on? What's he got a project coming up?
The dude had won he had already won every award known to man when I met him, and he would show up, he would have his toupee on, and he would sit and he would work with the students, and it didn't matter who he was working with. He had the utmost respect for what they were doing, and he helped them all the same way he would help anyone. He's just one of those directors, teachers who sees the humanity in everyone, and knows that there's worth there regardless, of the talent. And that's kind of a hard thing to find in Hollywood, somebody.
Yeah, and we're talking, both he and Benton were directors from a previous era, and there's a couple guys that made it through, Francis and Marty and a couple other guys, but there's not that many left from those days that are still making great movies. And, it's interesting to see. There's not a lot of character pieces made anymore. And that was the independent movie thing did very well for a while to try to sort of bridge that gap. But then, the thing about independent movies is they're very dependent on everyone else, to make them, watch them, get them done.
What's your honest opinion on The Irishman? Just give it to us straight.
Oh, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it.
Oh, you get a free
That's
pass.
that's very diplomatic of you.
I haven't watched it. I haven't watched it.
I'm going to be honest. I haven't seen it either. And I have a friend who is in it. And I love this guy. He's a great guy. He's an Italian-American guy, born and raised in Brooklyn, young Broadway producer, still busting his ass, trying to make it in this business, and really humble cat. Totally just worked his ass off. Ended up producing a Broadway play, just sheer grit and work alone. His name's Dom LaRufa, and he's actually coaching and helping people right now and getting back into the swing of things. But he was in it. I haven't seen the whole movie yet. I heard it was like excruciatingly long, and like the budget that he had, and then he just started talking shit about movies, and that pissed me off. And so I never watched the film. I want to see it, but it's like, my friend was like, dude, they spent like $12,000 on a cane, and it was featured for 1 second in the film, and I'm like, this guy's making fun of the Avengers and saying it's not cinema. Meanwhile, he's spending $12,000 on a cane that made 1 second of the film. I'm like, who the fuck is he? No offense to Martin Scorsese, not that he's ever going to listen to this, but it's like, to me, that was like very, I don't know, snobbish and a dick thing to do. And like, who the fuck is he to critique cinema? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. But part of that too is that, and I don't know, this is maybe not speaking out of turn and maybe not really true, but there's no domestic release on that, right? So they were only getting paid based on the size of the budget.
Absolutely. It was all Netflix.
Why not inflate the budget to get a better piece of my fee?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Anyway, yeah.
It reminds me of like when I saw
the trade, my friend.
I saw the declassified, like the budget for like the Forever Wars in Afghanistan, and it was like $3 million, shoes. I'm like,
toilet paper.
Like I'm like, what? No wonder the Pentagon and they don't ever release their budgets and receipts. I mean, this is what they've been doing. My God, it's insane. Anyway, we can get into those things later on. Let me ask you, your next role was in one of my favorite TV series, Fantasy Island. Right?
Yeah.
So with Ricardo Montbon and the
Belches.
plane. So where did you guys shoot that? Was that was in Hawaii?
No, it was in Los Angeles. So the whole thing is shot in LA. Yeah, there's I think they might have done some of the exteriors in Hawaii at some point, or the way series gets shot is like ER, it's set in Chicago, but they only go to Chicago like once a season,
right,
or twice a season to shoot everything out. But yeah, no, we shot it here in LA, and I can't believe you saw that, man. I that was fun. I got to play the antithesis of the perfect child. In fact, my parents turned me in to get a better kid because I'm such a donkey or whatever. And they decide to they trade me in for this perfect child, and then of course they decide that I was perfect all along. So that was great.
They came to their senses.
It was very fun. What kind of M&Ms Hervé Villachez likes the best?
Which kind?
The plane.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's
no, it's so crazy. It's just crazy to me that was you.
Yeah, I once entered a mustaches for kids contest. Where you raise money, you grow a mustache and you raise money for a charity. And as part of it, I had to come up with a name and all sorts of information for my mustache. And in honor of Ricardo, I named my mustache the Ricardo Montalban. And I did end up winning the competition, so that was great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So then you worked with another favorite director of not only mine, I'm sure, but a lot of people who are going to tune into this, John Hughes. And so, my God, then talk about an iconic film. 16 Candles. What was it? I mean, that's become, obviously, the kind of the cult following it has. And, you were with Molly Ringwald and Michael C. Hall. I mean, what was it like working with the kind of the early Brat Pack, And I mean, you must have some funny stories about that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know anything about them or him. I mean, I remember when I went to the audition was in New York, and I walked in there, and there was John Hughes, and he's a sort of he's sort of a big teddy bear looking guy. You know, he's a big guy with these glasses on. He's kind of dorky. He's not Hollywood in any way, shape, or form. Very Chicago. And Molly was there, and she was really super cool. Anthony Michael Hall, I think, was there too, but I didn't have anything to do with him. But they were all just sort of hanging out. This was sort of John's clubhouse in some ways. And we read, and it was really funny. And I thought I did a terrible job in the audition. I'll never forget that. And then I was really actually kind of distraught about it. And I got a call from John later that day, and he said, it was great. He said, we're gonna bring you in. You're gonna play this role. I was like, okay, cool. And I think that sort of feeling that it was sort of John's clubhouse was what made everything that John did so great. He really, there was no pretense about him. And if you know much about John, which I imagine a lot of these folks do, National Lampoon, he's just a funny, offbeat, twisted human being. Well, there's all the Mr. Mom movies. There's 16 Candles. There's Pretty in Pink. There's
now you gotta include National Lampoon. Oh my God!
If you really want to get a clue into John's life and brain, read some of his early stories that he wrote for National Lampoon and those kind of things. It's a whole different guy.
Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, just craziest stuff. But that was sort of John's, where he sort of came from. He came from this idea that like nothing's off limits. It's all good. We're all in it together. And that was really the vibe that he created when we were doing these movies. And I think that's why this sort of Brat Pack came together too, because they were all very insular together. They're 14, 15, 16. I was younger. I was 13. But they're all sort of coming of age within the confines of working with John.
Yeah.
And that was great. They would go over to John's house and listen to music together. They would talk about art and philosophy and life, and they would bring their feelings into these scenes, and then John would sort of craft things together. And he would, he and Molly were very, very, very close for a very long time. And that was the sense that you got, working with John was great. And the sets were funny and chill. I remember the first day I showed up on set, they were filming the party scene where it was after the big party at Michael Scheffling's house, who plays the hot guy. And the place is demolished, right? And they're doing these big establishing shots of like, toilet paper trees, and the Rolls Royce has smashed into the tree, and all these other things. And I was like, this is awesome, this is so great. And it was just sort of what we did from there. We just had a ball making it.
Man, it's so much fun making it. I mean, look, it can be stressful making a comedy, but it's generally my limited experience, is that it's a lot more, kind of a laid back. I mean, you have demand, deadlines and you got to make your day and all that stuff, but it's just, man, when I watch movies like Old School and like some of the more recent comedies that I love, like I'm just like, oh man, I would fucking love. Can you imagine being on that set? Like, how do you not crack up every time Will Ferrell is doing it? Like
anything.
Yeah. I mean, like, and some movies are just such a right combination of actors, and that immediately there's the writing, the outline is there, and you hit the right actors, and you have all this magic happen, and it's just there. It's like in every scene. And in other movies, comedies, you think you got you have all the same elements, but the story isn't there, the characters aren't there, and it just falls flat and falls flat and falls flat. It's just so amazing to me what makes something funny and what makes it fail at comedy,
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the people, the chemistry of the people. I mean, John was not one to, John was one to allow you to do whatever you wanted to do for a couple of takes, a couple times. He was not one to like make you, read his words the way they're written. He wasn't one to make you sort of have to do it the way it's done. One of my lines, which is, after one of my lines, it's like classic. I walk down the hallway and I kind of bump into a door, and I did that like accidentally. John was like, "That's great, let's keep doing that." John just kind of let you do whatever you wanted to do, and as long as he felt like he could find a place for it, it would stay in.
Yeah, it's a wonderful freedom. I literally came from an audition this morning that one of the very few auditions I think in New York City that asks you to be absolutely word perfect, and like they won't even, if you start off and you're off by a word, they're not even gonna They're not even going to look at the rest of the audition. That's
Was it a
generally.
theater piece or was it a movie? Or
It's a very popular TV show that I'm not going to name, but you've heard of it. It's an award winner. It's one of the most popular shows on TV with one of the widest demographics. It's a period piece. I'll just say that.
yeah, right.
It
Yes.
takes place in the 50s.
Okay.
So they're very specific, and I understand. But it's such a pain in the ass, man. It's just like every fucking word. And sometimes you're really in the moment, and you're trying to be improvisational and spontaneous with the moment that you're working with as an actor. And so to be confined to just these 3 words when you're feeling, and you can bring to life maybe 4 words, it's a fucking pain in the ass. Man, we did so many takes this morning. It was fucking crazy making.
Yeah, that's always the thing. I mean, I'll be honest. I hate auditioning. I fucking
Oh
hate
man,
it.
I fucking hate it. I came home today. I was so
Cannot.
miserable.
I'm terrible at auditioning, first of all, because it's like I don't know why I get super nervous, and like I just do not do well auditioning at all, and it's really hurt me deeply in my career, I think, because
it's a different animal than acting. I mean, it's like, yeah, you are doing whatever, but it's different. I don't know how to explain it. It's not.
Yeah. For
It's
people
not
that
the
are
same
listening,
thing.
in auditions, you got to go in, they give you scenes to read, and you go in and you get maybe 2 minutes. Hi, how you doing? A bunch of people you never met before. And it could be anything from like a deeply emotional piece to like high comedy, where you might not even know what else is going on in the story. And you got to kind of, hit your mark, say your
You got to be a
song,
detective.
and get out. And you never know what happens after that unless you get a call back, or otherwise it's just like, thank you very much.
Yeah,
And
you got no feedback.
that wasn't what I really liked about acting. I don't like that. I don't like that about working. I don't like that about anything.
Man.
And, it really sort of turned me off, and frankly, it made me a bit of a snob for the whole process. I really couldn't handle the process. And,
I don't, I understand in my
gave up on
bones. Yeah. I mean, like, and I came home this morning, and, my wife's like, how'd it go? She loves this show. And I'm like, I was fucking torturous. It was torturous.
That's the worst
feeling
in the world, isn't it? Like, not only do you not know, but you feel like shit about it, and you still don't know, and you will never know.
No.
You could have fucking crushed it, Faust. You could have been phenomenal. But you've got, hey, they don't want a guy who's got a, who's not 6'2" instead of 5'11", and there you go.
You just never. I mean,
this is fascinating. But did you ever make out with Molly Ringwald? Are the rumors true?
Oh gosh, Hunter.
He was younger. Weren't you younger then?
I was much younger. I was like
much
13.
younger, dude.
I did not make out with Molly.
What are you talking
Ringwald,
about?
Tyler.
All right, but who was having sex with who on that set?
Come on.
Give us some dirt. Michael
All
Zeno, we know was doing blow.
Wait a minute.
I was much younger than
you. Were younger, but you weren't that much younger, Justin. Give us the scoop. Who was banging who?
I don't know.
Because they were teenagers,
I think there was probably a lot of loose, dirty sex happening, but I was not part of it.
Yeah.
These kids are
but you can smell it in the air, I bet, right?
They're living in hotel rooms that are paid for.
Fucking A, man. Are you kidding me? There's a lot of sex.
You can order anything you want.
Yeah.
There was no drugs. There was absolutely no drugs.
Well, not around you. You were too young.
The only thing I really picked up that was a bad habit on that set was I started smoking.
That's a drug, Justin. That's a drug.
It was a bad drug. I mean, I smoked for years and years and years.
Man, it's the worst.
Yeah, it's not a good thing to do, but I don't smoke anymore, which is great. But I did really start like learning how to smoke on making.
Yeah.
And not weed. That was much later, but everyone was pretty straight laced. I think that there's the thing about making movies and making a lot of them, especially with that same crew, is if you do start to get out of bounds, it catches up with you very quickly.
Yeah.
You can't make the movies. It's bad on John. It's bad on the studio. So there was a lot of oversight.
Yeah, there were some people who had never caught up to, but
I would agree with that. Yeah.
But there's exceptions to every.
Yeah, but these are minors, 16, 15, 14, 13. You have to be careful.
Yeah, no.
We had to go to school every day. We had 3 hours of school.
I mean, dude, I the first film I produced was with a child actor, and it was also with Cloris Leachman and Tara Reid, of all people, and working with a child actor who he played my son, and it was it was tough. I mean, like, you know, we you really have to be very careful, you know,
conscious of what you're doing.
Exactly. And you know, there's more guidelines than ever now, but at the same time, there's always been a lot of guidelines for working with young actors like that. So I know
absolutely.
It's a lot of hoops to jump through. It's like whenever I'm reading a screenplay for someone who's trying to get their film produced or asking me for notes, I'm like, are you sure you want to have one of your, two or three of your lead characters be this young? Do you know what you're asking for? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like,
that's why you see a lot of times you get, like a 25-year-old playing a 16-year-old.
Oh yeah. Literally.
As long as we're on the topic of young boys, can we talk about Kevin Spacey? I know that you had some thoughts.
Oh yeah. Speaking of young boys,
I've heard some stories about Kevin that are not that would be rather precarious about his situations he was in and situations other people were in around him. I don't have any first-hand knowledge of Kevin Spacey, but from what I understood, it was well known that Kevin was more than happy to corrupt younger actors and people that he worked with.
So this is what I don't understand. Okay, this was known. What would you say? 20 years? I mean, how long has Kevin Spacey been Kevin Spacey? A long fucking time.
Him and Bruno Kirby as well, and I think Bruno managed to miss out on most of this. But again, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't have first party knowledge, but from what I understood, it was.
But now you have actors coming out and they're attacking other actors, producers for not saying anything. And yet, at the same time, we have literally decades in the books of people not saying anything. So, if we're not going to go retro with it, what are we doing? I mean, like we called out poor Dustin Hoffman for giving a woman a foot massage back in 1984. He got put on the ringer, and I mean, look. I know the culture was different then, and I'm not defending what he did, but at the same time, I just don't understand how the double standard is applied, and how it's now it's like, even if you have some knowledge of it, you're guilty, just like the person who did it. And, these people are getting projects pulled out from them when meanwhile, for years and years and years, everyone knew about it, enabled it, and didn't say shit about it. It wasn't until literally the house of cards fell, no pun intended, that people decided that enough was enough. So I'm just, it flabbergasts me the way the standard is applied, and I'm not one.
Is pretty legit, I don't have an answer for you, but I just think that eventually it starts. The way the pendulum swings for any of those kind of things, it starts from like, oh no, oh yeah, there's that, and then all of a sudden it shifts into sort of the cover your own ass mode. Yeah, which is when the cards really start to fall. Because somebody somewhere has to cover their own ass and begins to throw people under the bus, and that splits the thing wide open. Yeah. And I think that's exactly how it went down with Harvey. Exactly how it went down with Kevin and a couple other people, and then it sort of goes on from there. Then people sort of jump on the bandwagon.
Oh yeah.
But
like they did with Cuomo.
Yeah, but if somebody becomes, if somebody else becomes sort of liable for what went down, they're going to cover their own ass, and that will crack things open.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I'm just, I think the Me Too movement was long overdue. Don't get me wrong. Anyone who's listening, and if you happen to be a female audience, who is in the industry, the Me Too movement should have came 15 years ago. It should have came 20 years ago. It was long overdue. The only reason why it came like the supernova that it did was because it had been burning for so long, and so it had to come, because there's always an empowerment movement that comes, to give people the understanding that they have every right to do something, right? Whether you're talking about civil rights, voting rights, whatever it is, like we human beings seem to need a movement in order to make a clear pronouncement of what should be universally acceptable, but culture and society have taken what should have been and kind of like smashed it and molded it and put it in someone's pocket and pretended it didn't exist. That's my feeling on it. It's a little crazy, but
it's a tangled web, man. I mean, I think I can't even comprehend some of the unjustness that has gone down. Like I don't even know how I could possibly understand the way other people feel about it.
Yeah.
Because it's nothing that's ever happened to me. I'm sensitive to it, but I could never possibly understand how hard it's been for some people and what they've been through, no matter what it is, whether it's inequality in the workplace, whether it's inequality in racialism. I have my own life, and I know that I personally don't understand so much and can't possibly know the extent of the hurt and damage and frustration that some people must feel about all these things.
Especially
you just imagine a girl with like your trajectory at that time. If it was a girl, like it would have been a completely different.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll be honest, there were a lot of sort of bodies strewn around the way, when I was coming up. We called ourselves sort of the usual suspects. There was a bunch of guys, and we all did auditions, and we didn't see a lot of the female because we weren't working with them, but there were tons and many girls who I'm sure were on the gross end of many more things than I could possibly comprehend.
My God, yeah, especially in that time period. It was just it was no holds barred there for.
I mean, even Molly to this day thinks that 16 Candles should be banned because of the scene in it where Michael Anthony Hall's character wakes up not knowing if she's had sex with the other girl, but inferring that they did. That's blatantly a post-date rape scene. And I happen to think that she's right. I mean, it's a different time.
But what's it going to do to ban the movie, though?
I don't know.
I mean, it's
I don't know if she wants to ban the movie, but I know that she definitely has. She wrote a complete op-ed about that particular piece.
I mean, that's another reason why it wouldn't be made today. But at the same time, you're capturing a time frame. It's a slice of life. That's what movies are in a lot of ways. And so, I don't know. I don't think there's anything to be learned from retro banning things like that. Maybe something.
Buffalo 66. I mean, think of the list. The list could go on.
Oh my God! Yeah.
What about like Animal House, where the "don't fuck that poor girl" is like fuck her brains out. That whole that was kind of rapey.
Kind of.
Yeah. Anyway, we can go on this forever. There's a lot of movies. And
everybody's at 11, so I start at 3 and then I move up to 11. But I like to start low. So kind of.
Yeah. So Justin,
and these movies like Furniture in the Fire. I mean, whatever happened, there's so many things that could be.
This is funny. One of the first scripts I wrote a long time ago about this crazy girl I was in a relationship with and her ex-boyfriend who I went to war with in New York. And I just wrote it as kind of a cathartic thing to get out of my system. And Justin was like one of the first people to read it. He was like, I like this. Like, we should make this. And I was like, all right. So we tried to make it for a while. But dude, weren't your parents involved in Dune, or is that somebody else?
Yeah, my folks had my dad and some friends of his had part of a blind limited partnership that put money into Dune.
Wow, that was thoughtful of them.
They must have made out a little bit, right? I mean,
I think they did fine. Yeah, I mean,
it ended up being.
They're not. It's a tax write-off for those guys. My dad ran a hedge fund for a long time, and this was before private equity was really involved in Hollywood, and then slowly but surely got more and more involved. And
there was
the Dune partnerships were actually some of the first ones, I think.
Yeah. Well, so tell me, dude, you worked with Don Johnson at the height of Miami Vice and Susan Sarandon, who I have a funny story about. I don't know if I should tell. In Sweetheart's Dance, that was in '88. Can you share any memorable, stories from that production?
That was really cool. So this was a movie similar to Kramer in that it's about a couple whose relationship is sort of on the rocks. Don Johnson, Susan Sarandon, and I play their sort of high school age son who's going through his own issues as well. And it was really super fun to work on. We were in Vermont. We shot it in Vermont, and my character didn't have a huge amount of depth to him. He was sort of like the token, sort of unhinged son.
So you were typecast?
A little bit, but Don, I went down to Miami to meet Don on the set of Miami Vice and sort of talk about this, and he was at the absolute height of his stardom, and I was intimidated, but it was great. He seemed really cool, and Susan was amazing and is amazing. I think Susan is a remarkable human being. Don Johnson, as a human, we never really saw eye to eye on things, but he's a great actor. He did really well in the role. He challenged me in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I think
was he a dick or was he cool?
Well,
first of all, was the relationship that he had with the son, was it standoffish? Because sometimes that.
Well, yeah, the relationship was supposed to be relatively standoffish.
Okay.
He doesn't understand his teenage son, and our relationship as actors was challenged a little bit. He's a challenging guy. He was the first real huge star that I had ever worked with and knew, and he knew it. He knows how big of a star he is.
Yeah.
He's also he's a good guy. He did a lot of great things for a lot of great people, and that was super fun. I mean, my favorite thing about that entire movie was that I got to actually. We filmed this big scene, and Ben and Jerry, before they were like really big, were part of this parade scene with this new thing. So I actually got to hang out with Ben and Jerry for Cherry Garcia.
The Ben and Jerry, huh?
The Ben and Jerry, man.
Wow.
They gave me a personal tour of the factory. I was one of the first people ever to have chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream.
No shit.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I love it. I used to love that. Yeah.
But Susan, I still love to death. Susan's amazing. Elizabeth Perkins is amazing. Jeff Daniels, probably has gone on to be really the most impressive on the acting front. Jeff does some really amazing work, and you could see his work ethic. And when we were doing that movie too, he plays the best friend to Don Johnson, and really was a very, very good foil for him. And you could see his process and his chops and his sort of flexibility as an actor. I got a lot out of sort of talking and getting to know him.
He's amazing. I love seeing him on Broadway. I can't wait till one day when it returns and he returns to it, because he's always a force. I mean, he just gets better and better. I mean, he continues to kill it.
He just dives in and he doesn't look back. He's got he's so deep and he's so in and he's so single-minded that it's impressive to watch.
And there's not a lot of I wouldn't say there's a lot of film actors who have the stage craft to do what he does, and he makes this transition seamlessly. He's like I've seen a few actors do it. Ian McKellen comes to mind. He's just incredible. You just can't take your eyes off him. He's so good on camera, but on stage, he's just like a tour de force, man. He's like a vortex on stage. He's got those old British chops. You know what I mean? Like, he's been doing classical theater his whole life, and he's amazing. There's a few actors though. But he's definitely one of them. And Jeff he's amazing to watch, man. He's no matter what he's doing, even when the play isn't so. And most of the ones he's been in the last few years have been really big successes. So
he doesn't play around. He goes deep and he's committed, and there's the people around him can't help but sort of feel that commitment and dive in there as well. It really is pretty infectious. You should listen to him do. There's a 3-part Hemingway documentary on PBS that Ken Burns did, and Jeff voiceovers the Hemingway when he was writing these letters and some pieces, and just the gravitas he has, kind of translates really well to that.
Wow,
really good,
I'm gonna check it out. Very cool.
Yeah, it's great.
I was about to say something really stupid, but I might as well now.
Now you have to.
I just finished book 7 of the Harry Potter series.
Nice.
I've read every word to my son, who's 9, and he struggles with dyslexia. He can't, but he loves books.
So do I. I'm extremely dyslexic.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah, and ADD, so it's a perfect combo.
Yeah, it's a great. I have ADD real bad. He's probably a high candidate for ADHD, and also dyslexic. But
he'll be okay.
Oh, I know he will. He's a great boy. He's so empathic, and you can take him anywhere, and he's always looking out for people. So I know he's going to be
Nice.
fine.
Great.
Yeah. But so you took some time off after that. You got your psychology degree.
I
And then
did, yeah.
yeah.
So I just, acting was never supposed to be a career for me. It wasn't something that I had to have. And so after Kramer, I took off, 5 years and did, just sort of being a kid. Then I did a bunch of movies in high school, 16 Candles being one of them, and then Sweetheart's Dance being one of them as well. And then after that, I was like, okay, I need to go to college, and I need to actually spend some time to get into college. Like I need to actually get my grades together. I need to apply to schools, not knowing that I actually probably could have just continued on working and probably done the college thing if I really wanted to. But it was a conscious decision to step away and go to college. And I think in a lot of ways it was great. I mean, I loved going to college. I went to Skidmore in Saratoga Springs, which is
cool,
just
man.
outside of Manhattan.
I know Skidmore. Yeah.
Yeah. My sister went there as well. And it was a really formative part of my life. I think if I had decided to stay in the acting world, my life would have been very different.
Yeah.
There were movies that came through like the one with Robin Williams.
Is Doubtfire?
No, where he plays the teacher.
Oh, with Matt with
Yeah. And I tried out for that
Dead
movie,
Poets
but I
Society.
didn't
Dead Poets
really,
Society.
Dead Poets, yeah, and I didn't really commit to it. There were a couple others that I kind of sort of really let go of. And I think that was a pretty deciding moment for me and for the industry, is the way they kind of viewed me. I think the industry was like, all right, this guy's not really, he's doing other things. And so they kind of let me go, which was great. I think they either let me go or they kicked me out, one or the other. And
what's the difference? Yeah.
Just off I went. But yeah, I went to college. I got a psychology degree, minor art history. I played lacrosse for 3 years.
Nice.
I smoked a lot of weed, started to go to fish shows, played drums in bands. I had a great time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was good. College was the best.
Sounds like you could have went to my college. That's cool, man.
I did learn something too, though. I did learn a lot.
I'm sure you did. I was almost a psychology major until I started doing theater, and then I was like, I could be a psychologist.
I was really into psychology, especially as an actor, like controlling your mind. And I got really into the neuropsychology of psychology, which is sort of what fascinates me the most, sort of the chemistry of the brain. And, everything. And then sort of with art history too, this philosophy that I had that, I personally believe that most of the Impressionists suffered from schizophrenia.
Yeah.
And, lead poisoning, to be specific. And what one of the largest symptoms of lead poisoning is blurred vision. And so, they all started mixing their own paints and going out into the fields, and all of a sudden things got very wavy. And and Van Gogh had mixed a batch of paint the day because you're off, all this other stuff. And they're mixing lead paint,
that was probably like
these guys are ingesting
the weakest shit that he was taking.
Pounds of lead. Yeah, exactly.
Those
like,
guys
hey,
died
mercury is great for your fingers.
I mean, yeah. Those guys, so many artists, you read their biographies, not that they wrote them, but the biographies written about them, and you're just like, holy shit, God. And like, being an artist now is hard, and we have all this modern luxury. Imagine being an artist like in the Renaissance, or like back when like, there was, the water had not been, cleaned up yet, and you had to get drunk just to fuck.
You had to mix your own lead-based paints to go out in the field.
Literally, fucking, just, they hadn't. I guess they hadn't discovered mushrooms yet. I don't know. Like, what the fuck?
And well, they probably did out there in those fields. They probably watched the deer chowing some mushrooms and were like, "Hey, let's try that."
They should have anyway. So tell me about the Slam Dunk Film Festival, man. Like, is that still? Is it still a festival?
So after college, I came back out to California to kind of reignite acting, and I got involved in a crazy movie randomly that a guy in Vermont was directing and writing and producing, named Keith Spiegel, and it was being produced by Cabot Orton. And so they asked me to play this role, and I did. It was great. It was super fun. It was about this movie called Groupies, about sort of a road comedy movie about a guy about this 1970s superhero television show that gets canceled, and then a nutty guy gets, guy escapes from the nut house and decides to kidnap all the child stars from the show and force them to make new episodes. It was great. It's Brian O'Halloran,
Wow.
me, Ali Sheedy. It was really fun. And we made it for, a wing and a prayer. And it turned out really well. It was, I thought, a really super funny, crazy, wacky movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so we tried to get it into Sundance, and it wasn't ready to go to Sundance. So Keith, the director, this is a true story, was on the train going to work at Sundance from Vermont. And he doesn't fly because he's very scared of flying. So while he was on the train, he heard about this other, there's some other people there. And he heard that this documentary on Courtney Love and Kurt Cobain was being kicked out of the Sundance Festival because
it was being kicked out.
Music rights.
I see.
So Keith was like, well, I have this movie that we want to show too. So he called up those people and we're like, hey, listen, I'll show your movie for you if you guys, help me show mine. And they were like, okay, great. And this is Cassian Elwes, who goes on to become probably one of the largest agents, independent film agents in the world. So Keith calls me up and he's like, hey, can you find 2 movie projectors and get them to Park City in like 48 hours? And I was like, yeah, sure, I can do that.
Yeah.
So I did it. And we created this film festival. We asked a bunch of other filmmakers, George Hickenlooper, Roger Avery, some pretty well-known guys at the time, if they would join forces with us, and they all said yes. And so 2 weeks later, we had the opening of our film festival was this documentary, Kurt and Courtney, and we had lines around the block at Park City, Utah. We had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people wanting to get into this thing for a film festival that didn't exist, 2.5 weeks before.
Man, talk about perfect timing with that documentary being kicked out and everyone wanted to see it. We
weren't afraid. Like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna sue us?
Yeah.
Go for it. We're a bunch of guys.
Sue who? We don't even have
we're renting our equipment. It's fine. And it was super fun and super cool. And then we got to show our movie and people loved it. And Kurt and Courtney goes on to sell for like $4 million out of a film festival that never even
existed.
Like,
what the fuck?
Yeah, and then like 2 of our other movies, Roger Avery's Dogtown, and then Boogie Boy sold, and then our film kind of sold. And we were like, this is great. Let's start. We're going to keep doing this. So we went to Cannes and we did it. We took some friends that were filmmakers of ours and we sort of put our oomph behind it in Cannes, and that did pretty well. And then the next year comes around and we decided to kind of formalize it. Then we did Cannes again, and we became much closer with the folks in Cannes because we actually really built it out in association with the Cannes Film Festival. And then, we now we're on our 2nd year. We're doing pretty well. We had sponsors. And so I was like, what, but we're dying here because we can't, the mechanics of showing these movies in different countries and getting reels and all these things together was just killing us.
Yeah.
So I went to Microsoft and I said, look, I've got this film festival and, we want to show all our movies digitally. And I know you have this new technology called Windows Media Player. This is the original Windows Media Player.
Wow.
And they say, great, we will work with you. We will digitize all the movies. We will provide you with the equipment to show them digitally. And so we had the first ever 100% digital film festival in the history of film.
That was probably the coolest thing Microsoft did back then.
Yeah. It was really cool of them to do. I literally, Faust, I stalked these guys at a conference that they did in Santa Monica, California. Wow. And I went up to them after and I was like, hey man, I've got a film festival. You guys want to help us out? And after our first meeting, we had a 3-year deal for them to be the official sponsor. Yeah, it was great. Kudos to Microsoft for getting it done.
That was back when big tech was a different animal,
Yeah. And we helped a lot of movies do a lot of good business, get them in front of a lot of right people. That's awesome. How I kind of came to know your cohort here. And it was really super, super fun. No one made any money. In fact, I probably ended up blowing all the money I'd ever made in the movies on this thing. But
I'm sure, yeah.
But it was worth it. It was really a good time. Our events in Cannes got to be legendary.
For people who don't know, Cannes is it's obviously the most famous film festival, but it's also a very big marketplace. And so if you can have a presence in Cannes, even though you don't have a film in Cannes, and a lot of people, pretty much the who's who of the business is always at Cannes every year. Although I don't know about what happens these days because of the shutdown and everything. But But that when he says, can, that's what he's talking about.
And it's the way Canada's set up. It's like a 10-day juggernaut festival.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of thousands of people there, and it's pretty nutty. And we had taken over the rooftop of this one hotel called the Noga Hilton. So we had it for 10 days, and we would build out, a theater room. We'd build out bars, and we get sponsors in and everything. And other companies would come in and do events there. So as part of our film festival and market, we would also provide screening services and press services to other companies like Ferrari and Campari and Reebok and the Weinstein Company, and I'll never forget it. One day we're there and Jean-Claude Van Damme was doing a press junket for like his movie that was coming out, being produced by somebody, and he fires up a crack pipe right there in the middle of the thing. I swear to God. I swear to God, he just hit it hard, and that was the level of craziness that was going on. We had Mila Kunis in our hot tubs. Not Mila Jovovich. We had a lot of fun. We were guests on the Playboy yacht a couple of years. It was great. It was really a good time.
Man. And man, how was COVID for you? How was the lockdown?
I'm sure it was great. I'm sure he enjoyed himself.
I did. I got a lot. I got a lot of good thinking done. Hunter, thank you for asking. I actually had COVID at the very beginning. I was.
Are you sure? Are you guessing?
No, I'm positive. In March of 2020, I got very sick.
In LA, right?
Yeah, I was in LA.
I did too.
But did you get tested and confirmed?
I'll tell you the whole story. Yeah, so I was down and out for like 10 days, and when I first started feeling sick, I went to UCLA out here in Calabasas, and they brought me in, and they wouldn't test me. They said that this was before they had a lot of tests, and they wouldn't actually test me. So they said treat it like pneumonia. If your body hurts, take some medicine, just kind of ride it out, which I did, and it was pretty bad, but I never really got the fever. And then I started to get better, and I was like, great, I think I'm kind of over this after about 10 days. And now in that 10 days, that was like March 5th through March 15th, and by now it had become very big. And so it was actually the last weekend that LA was open before it locked down. My girlfriend and I went for a hike. I was feeling better. I came back that Sunday night, and I started to feel terrible. And by like 11 o'clock Sunday night, I had like 105, 106 degree fever from zero. So like in 5 hours, I went from no fever to like 106 degrees. And I was like, I need to go to the hospital. I need to figure my stuff out because it's like cooking my brain. So I called up the early next morning, or that night, I called up UCLA, and she's like, all right, I'll find out tomorrow what we can do. So they call me up early morning Monday, and I'm still battling like 104 degree fever, and they won't let me in. They're like, you can't come here.
Wow.
And I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? She's like, I'm gonna have to call you back. We got the head of infectious disease from UCLA saying that you're not allowed to come here.
Yeah, they were treating
you guys got to test me. You got to do something because I don't know who I'm infecting. I don't know what.
It's probably a good thing you didn't go.
But then 24 hours after that, I was fine.
Yeah. See, if you had went, God knows what happened.
So I made an appointment. The woman at UCLA took some pity on me, and she's like, I can get you into this emergency clinic to get tested. So she did. She got me into the emergency clinic test, and sure enough, that was like Tuesday. I started to feel better Tuesday. I got tested Tuesday. On Friday, it came back positive. So then I had to quarantine for another 14 days after that. So I was basically quarantined for the whole month of the whole month of March. But other than that, I was good. My kids were okay. I never gave it to anybody. Nobody else got it. My girlfriend never got it. But I was just really ripshit pissed about how lackadaisically our government handled it at the beginning. I really think that we made some major mistakes at the beginning. And,
I don't know, man. I mean, I think that there was always a big problem. And I think it had the fact that the government made a deal with China that they wouldn't disclose information about the virus before they announced to the public about the virus. That the government, whoever in the government had the actual information, they had signed non-disclosure agreements. I mean, this is from people at the WHO have come forward and said this. Like, look, we know that there was, before China would give us any information about what they knew about their case, how they treated everyone, what happened in China, there was non-disclosure agreement signed at the highest level saying that we would not come forward and speak about or blame China. Of course, China ended up being blamed, but this nonsense about a bat, people eating bat fucking sandwiches. I mean, you don't have to be a scientist to realize that is complete malarkey, and that's not how viruses are spread in any way, shape, or form on this planet. But that's the story that the CCP put out to their people, and of course, their people believe whatever they're told, or else they'll get locked up if they make too much noise. They don't.
I mean, the politics of the whole situation are nasty.
Nasty.
There's a great Frontline documentary on China, on what happened in China before, like between like November and December, November of 2019 and like December and January of 2020. So like that 3-month period before it got public, that is just mind-bendingly crazy. About people running through the streets of Wuhan, doors being locked and doors being welded shut so people can't get out. The amount of centralized in Wuhan, and to this point, and this is really maybe part of the point, Wuhan is basically the most watched city in all of China, right? It's the home of basically all of the Chinese sort of tech companies that create all the systems for cameras, and these multi-layered cameras that can detect pupil dilation, heat sensitivity, temperature, all these things, and motion. And so they can actually tell if somebody's running across the street in Wuhan, and they will send police to that person. So if they see you on camera running, you're marked, and they'll go see you. It's really amazing to watch. And so most of these devices are actually made in Wuhan. So there's a theory that this was created as a way to sort of test Wuhan's ability to contain its own.
Believe that it was a crisis that was taken full advantage of by every sector.
That's
because the tech companies were like chomping at the bit, and still are in many ways, for this, to continue to roll out, some of these things they would love to see implemented by governments. I mean, the marriage is already in place. It's just a question of how many kids they're going to have, with this go around. What Wuhan is also is one of the most absolutely polluted and agro-industrial, polluted places on the planet. I mean, it literally between the soil and the air, Wuhan is probably the highest pollution on the planet. Period, hands down.
Wow.
The most amount of glyphosate and Roundups being sprayed. You're putting the most pressure on nature in Wuhan. And so, another reason why, it's a great place to build a level 4 bioweapons lab.
Yeah. I still love, though, I'm gonna go with the bat thing.
The bat
because
sandwich.
My favorite thing, the best meme I have ever seen was, don't say anyone can't change the world. Just ask the guy who ate the undercooked bat. It's literally the greatest meme of all time, I think.
There was some, look, if nothing else comes from this, there were some legendary memes that went around during the pandemic, for sure.
Well, listen, guys, I got to cut it off here.
Hey, man. Thank you so much, Justin.
Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to get some more stuff. I've got maybe 5 minutes I can do, but
let's
get far out, bitch.
Let me take you far out real quick before you go.
Let's get out there. Faust, let's go deep.
All right, brother. Listen, let me ask you this: what would you, in all your years and what you've come to understand and believe about mankind, what would you, if you could give a gift to people in the form of if you could whisper in their ear, or you could give them a mantra, but something that you could really reach people with, what would you have them understand, the understanding of which would change everything for them?
I think the meaning of life is to find a meaning in life, whatever that is for you. And nobody else can give it to you. Nobody else can help you find it. It's all about what you got to find the meaning for your life. And there may not be any meaning at all, and that may be the meaning. So that's the one thing I would share, that it's up to you to make your own way in this world, and you've got to find what works for you. And you know, whatever gets you through the night. And the ultimate words of John Lennon is all right.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah. Is there any advice you would give them on their way?
Drive fast and take chances.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah, that's good advice.
You know, I'm the worst. Nobody should take advice from me, man. I've made so many wrong turns that I've ended up back in the right place. Yeah, I'm not anybody's.
No, that's why you are. That's why you are, because you ended up in the right place. So,
yeah.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah,
so,
just sort of let it come. Take it as it comes.
Dude, get to the UFOs. Come on, man.
So,
let's get to it.
Yeah, let's get to it. UFOs are sweet.
So I don't know if you heard, Justin, but the government says it's okay now for you to believe in UFOs. They've acknowledged that they exist and that we have some. So it's cool. It's no longer taboo to think that UFOs are crazy. So what do you think of UFOs? Have you ever been on one? Tell us the truth. We know they love Los Angeles. We know they love Hollywood. What's going down?
I've written on a couple of cosmic rays, man, but I've never been on a UFO. And I personally don't believe in them. I don't think, you know.
Really?
My view of alien life is that it's just not existent. I personally don't believe in it. I don't believe that I just don't buy it. I really do think that we are fucking alone on this.
Are you serious?
Life. Yeah, 100%, man. I don't.
So wait, so do you think the government is hoaxing all the UFO stuff for their next false flag?
I think they don't know what to call it. I just think, you know, and I think they're not going to deny it. I think it's basically a deflect and move on scenario for them.
More of a deflect and move on scenario.
Yeah, there's, you know, they're going to say, yes, believe in UFOs, because then you're not going to look and discover that it's actually them testing, you know,
their new ships.
Drones.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not wrong. That's for sure.
I mean, I was in the desert, you know, several years ago when looking over at the China Lake Weapons Center, you know, from Joshua Tree, and you can see all sorts of shit in the sky.
Yeah.
If you look, and it's all man-made. It's all there. You know, there's no fucking UFOs, dude. There's no.
Yeah. I mean, you're in a lot of ways you're right, because most of the UFOs are totally identified. They should be called IFOs, because we know what they are. Most of the time there are ships, but I do believe and know in my heart that there are many ships that are not, you know, ours. And in fact, our ships love to play this cat and mouse game as if they could keep up, you know, with the other ships. But yeah, that's a conversation for another podcast.
I hope I'm wrong, man. I really do hope that there's someone else out there that can figure.
Oh, there definitely is. Let me reassure you.
To say it, I don't think there is. I think,
there definitely. Listen, take comfort, my friend.
You know, the odds of finding another planet with a moon to create a tide is, you know, let's find that first.
Oh yeah, but I mean, the odds are with us, though, right? I mean, that goes without saying.
The odds are with us.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And we like odds.
I still don't buy into it.
Oh man, listen. In your lifetime, you're gonna learn something different in this lifetime.
I hope so.
Yeah.
And I'm all for it. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not married to any particular belief system. I sort of float where I go, but it would be cool if there's other stuff, and it would be cool if you live on. You know, I think that when you're dead, you're gone, and that's it. It's game over.
Really?
You don't get a second chance. There's no fucking fanfare. There's no heaven and earth. There's no fucking guy. You're dead. You had your time. Done. Move on. We are literally like an accident. You know,
Justin,
if we don't get hit by a comet 100 million years ago, we're still dinosaurs, right? You know, the odds of how we came to be are fucking astronomical.
That's just it, though. They're too astronomical to be accidental. There's no way of.
That's the most bullshit phrase I ever heard in my whole life.
Dude, think about it. I mean, there's just no way. There's no explanation. I mean, look, I think that
if I would like to hit a royal flush playing poker, then I'll believe that maybe the odds are not so astronomical against me.
You just may do that, and when you do, I want you to remember you said that.
I will remember.
One of these days, you're going to be sitting around looking at a royal flush in your hand, and I want you to remember, like,
I'm
I have to
manifesting that shit with
rethink
Faust.
my understanding about UFOs and about aliens.
100%, man. 100%.
Absolutely, bro.
And hopefully I hit a big payday and I can buy you.
Oh man, I'd love that. That'd be great.
Well, thanks, you
send me a
guys. I
picture.
really appreciate the time. And
Thanks, Justin.
let me
Appreciate it.
ramble on and tell great stories. It was really,
Yeah.
it's nice. Nice
We'll
chat.
do it again sometime.